Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad. Wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam amma ba'd. Ahabati fillah, assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm sitting here with my man Abdul Brown. We go back, history. So as a further part of this series that we're doing, talking about revert stories, I thought it would be beneficial that our brother, bi'idhnillah ta'ala, Abdul that he shares a little bit of his story. So without further ado, as I said, we go back, a lot of history, walhamdulillah, and trying to reestablish those connections. InshaAllah ta'ala, he'll share some of his benefits. So first and foremost, assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hayyakum Allah. So, yeah, Ahi, how did you come to Islam? What led you on this beautiful path, this beautiful journey? Because it's a life journey, as we were just talking about.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So what was your, tell us about your story, man.
So, alhamdulillah, bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Basically, I was born in Seattle, Washington. And the way I came to this deen, really, and I have to say this truthfully, was through music.
Okay, through music, subhanAllah.
Things like when I was a teenager, listening to Public Enemy, listening to rap groups talking about Farrakhan, and I went through that phase of, seeing their representatives come to Seattle and listen to them. Obviously Malcolm X, reading the autobiography of Al-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz, and just having an interest in it, but not necessarily a desire to fully commit to it. But what changed was in the mid-90s, as I began to be more off on my own and looking at the world. I was raised Catholic, but I had left that, and I wanted to find some spiritual guidance and balance in my life. And I knew that it wasn't going to be through the Christian faith, and especially not through the Catholic faith. I had been through Catholic school. I had even been confirmed in my teenage years, but it just was not. It was not something I was going to look towards for that spiritual guidance. So I turned back to looking at Islam, and by that time there was a masjid near my home, and I was doing music at the time. I was part of a collective doing music, hip hop music.
Okay, what's a collective? Share with us.
There was a collective named called Tribal Productions. It was a pretty seminal and influential group of hip hop groups and single acts that formed the collective that we called Tribal Productions.
Kind of like Tribe Called Quest kind of thing, and the Jungle Brothers, all that.
Right,
okay.
Exactly like
Got
that.
It. Okay,
exactly
okay.
Like that. They were highly influential on us. But two brothers who were Muslim at that time and unfortunately are no longer. And one other who is still, alhamdulillah. I started asking them questions. They had already taken Shahada, and I started asking them questions about Islam. I remember coming, in fact, one of the brothers, we all drove in his pickup truck. He went to go to UPS to go pick up his collection of the translation of Sahih al-Bukhari.
MashaAllah.
And he had opened it, and I actually was reading one of the books in the back of the truck, and they said, bro, read that out loud. So I started reading things out loud, and I don't remember off top what I was reading, but what I do remember is that what I was reading made sense to me, and it piqued my interest even more. And I got a hold of a Quran, and I read the Quran, and everything in the Quran made sense to me. As I said, I was raised Catholic, went to Catholic school and everything, but my mother, who was also raised Catholic and still is, a Catholic, but she never pushed Jesus on me.
Mm.
She never pushed that intermediary on me. She
Yeah.
always talked about having a personal relationship with God.
Mm.
And I recognize that singular monotheism, trait of
Allah.
monotheism in Quran. Of course, it's the primary trait
Yeah.
of the Quran, of its call to humanity.
Mm.
It just became part of me,
Mm.
and I started. I'm the type of person, when I get interested in something, I kind of devour any kind of book or media, whatever on it.
Mm.
I want to learn as much as I can about it, and I started doing that with Islam.
Allah.
Getting books from the library, borrowing books from Muslims that I knew, continuing to read the Quran and then the commentary on the Quran. That particular one I had.
Brother Yusuf Ali, or
In fact,
I remember that was a copy.
I think it was Yusuf Ali.
I used to like that. Really. I still have a copy.
Yeah, it was the one that came from Saudi at the time before they did the Muhammad Muslim Khan translations exclusively.
Okay.
But it was that, and there was commentary in there. Just things of this nature. And as I read, I was like, this is it. This is what I want. I want to have that personal relationship with Allah. And as I was reading, I understood, about the 5 pillars of Islam. I understood about, fasting and giving zakat and things of this nature. At the time, I had a girlfriend, and I realized, as I kept reading, I realized that obviously that would have to be something that would have to go.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, you realized that at an early stage,
And Allah put me in a position where that went away naturally without much fitna.
MashaAllah.
Alhamdulillah. So at one point I was in my apartment, and this was in November of 1996, and I realized that if I took this step, and I remember hearing, and I think it was from either a Siraj Wahaj tape, or it might have been from, because at the time I'd gotten some tapes, listening to tapes. So the tapes that initially started me was Siraj Wahaj, some Hamza Yusuf, and Bilal Phillips, Sheikh Bilal Phillips. And it was one of them that said, I can't remember which, but it said that when you accept or come close to accepting Islam, when you want to take your Shahada, this is when you have to be careful that the shaitan is going to come to you and want to really, push leaving that. Like, no.
Yeah.
And I remember that as I was thinking about taking Shahada, the waswas came into my head about, it's going to be soon that you have to, if you take Shahada now, you're going to have to fast soon, because Ramadan was just around the corner. It was only like a couple months away.
SubhanAllah.
It was like early January, something like that at that time, for 97.
Yeah.
But I remembered what I had heard on the tape, and I said, "This is Shaitan trying to give me waswas."
Allah Akbar.
And I realized that, and I said, "No, I'm going to take Shahada." I called up one of the brothers who had been giving me tapes, and my brother Shah.
Okay.
And I called him up at his house, and I told him, "I want to take Shahada."
Yeah.
Subhanallah, Allah. He could not. He was screaming, takfir,
takfir. We wasn't making takfir.
He was takbiring all over the place.
Allahu Akbar.
And at that time, he was living at his house with his parents, and his parents were like, "What are you doing? Why are you screaming like this?"
Yeah.
And he just was so happy.
Allahu Akbar.
And
yeah. Sure.
I believe that was on a Wednesday. And
So
on Friday, I went to Jami al-Muslimin, the Cham, we called it the Cham Masjid at that time.
Yeah, that's where I took my Shahada.
And I took Shahada. It was Sheikh Muhammad Jaban was supposed to be there, but he wasn't there until the next day.
Okay.
I took it again the next day under his hand. But everyone was telling me, take it under the Sheikh's hand.
Yeah.
But I took it under brother's hand, and I can't remember the name, but I do remember he was from Sudan. Really, really
Maybe
good
Abdul Nasser. You remember it was kind of short.
Yes, it was Abdul Nasser.
Abdul Nasser, yeah.
Very,
He taught me.
brother.
He taught me to read Quran. Really, yeah.
Beautiful
Allah
brother.
preserve him. I don't know where he's at, but yeah.
And I remember after I took Shahada,
Yeah.
Everyone was, takbir,
Yeah.
and brothers were just all coming up to give me these hugs
Allahu Akbar.
and to offer themselves, give their phone numbers, if you need anything, call me something. And I happen to remember there was one brother, he was a white brother in the back.
Yeah.
His name was Ali.
It was Ali.
It was Ali.
Okay.
He came up to me, and he had a different tone. His tone was, he congratulated me, I think, but he also said, "Fear Allah," which it didn't concern me.
Yeah.
But I was like, I didn't even know about SubhanAllah at that time, but I just wow, it's like, okay, I got it.
Yeah.
But I always remembered that.
Yeah.
And that's helped me in times of need.
Just straightforward.
I remember what he told me. The fear of Allah, because that's at the end of the day. We hope for Allah's pleasure and the reward from Allah. We love Allah for what He's given us. The many ni'mah, that we can't count, they're incalculable, and we fear His punishment. That's one of the things I learned early. That I still, keep that close in my heart. And I thank the brother for telling me that. Just as I thank the other brothers who were so sincere in their exuberance of my having taken Shahada. Yeah. So, that's it.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. How did the issue, the Faisal, when that dawah came? Because really,
oh, here we go.
Faisal, Abu Hamza, all that kind of stuff. Because really, alhamdulillah, a lot of brothers, alhamdulillah, the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they moved away from that madness, and there was a lot of fitna, destruction of community, because that was a destructive dawah.
Yeah.
So what, how did that affect you when that hit the scene?
Well, when the masjid that was close to my home, I started going there, and a lot of brothers.
Was that Dar es Salaam or?
That was Dar es Salaam.
Okay.
Yeah, I had gone to Yassin Masjid on Cherry Street before, once just as a visitor.
Okay.
But not as a Muslim.
Okay.
And then they had to close that down for whatever reason, and then they moved over to East Union Street. Yeah. In Seattle, in the Central District, and established a masjid there called Dar es Salaam. Yeah. The imam was he was there before it was forced out, and there was other brothers who took the place of leading the khutbah, leading the salat, and so forth. But these brothers, all of this whole masjid was based on they were followers of Jamil al-Amin. May Allah free him. Ameen. And they were part of his Jamaat. Yeah. So but what had happened was, to the best of my knowledge, and Allah knows best on the veracity of this, but one of the brothers of the brothers who started the masjid had taken Shahada, had gone over to London, and had become basically enraptured by this dawah of Abdullah Faisal. And later on, after having left Abdullah Faisal to Abu Hamza.
Because of the conflict between those guys, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And so what he would do is he would bring back these tapes, and he had a professional tape dubbing machine, and would dub these tapes. And just like, these tapes, the thing that attracted me, and probably a lot of the other brothers, I really can't speak for them so much, because I had to speak for myself. Yeah. It was just, when, as a revert coming into Islam, especially from the black community, I brought a lot of baggage, and I brought a lot of the revolutionary, the stuff that I had learned, Malcolm X, and Farrakhan and things like this, and then
it's the history, really.
The history of the Central District, the Black Panthers was the second place where actually the second place after the original Oakland chapter was the Seattle chapter.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, wow.
A lot of people don't know that.
Panther leader, ex-leader. He
Yeah,
died
and
some years ago.
I knew a lot of the sons of those early Panthers.
Wow.
You know, I grew up with them.
Wow.
So I had access to some of that with that rhetoric.
Okay. Okay.
So a lot of that I think played into it. Faisal struck a chord with Muslims, with young Muslims,
Especially
primarily.
reverts.
Yeah, particularly reverts.
Yeah.
You know, because you start hearing things, hadith, like the hadith about the Muslims are like a body.
Yeah.
You know, when one part of the body is affected, the whole body is affected. And when you used to have stuff like, Bosnia was wrapping up at that time. When you have stuff like the southern Philippines and Mindanao, but the others hot, obviously Philistine,
Yeah.
Kashmir, ongoing.
Chechnya, I think.
Chechnya,
a little later or
Chechnya
somewhere
was big, right? Yeah, really going strong at that time.
Yeah.
You
That's
hear
true.
about these things, and of course, you feel a solidarity because these are your brothers and sisters that are being affected.
Yeah.
In these other parts of the world. But so that hadith and then them pushing Faisal and Abu Hamza and others. There were many
Abu
others.
Qatada, yeah.
Abu Qatada, there were many others. Pushing this narrative of jihad and going for jihad, and just off top, without any leader to to proclaim this, that you didn't need that and you could just go and and this, that, and the third, and that the leaders were all hypocrites or had made they were all kafirs because of this, that, and the third. And you start, because you don't know anything. You don't know. There's no scholars there. There's no one, even in the community that even understands these political things. That no one's talking about it at any other masajid. You start clutching onto this because it's part of the emotional baggage of having that anger, at least as a black man, growing up in the society that oppress you. Now, well, guess what? Now you have something else to be angry about. And then what I've always attributed it to, primarily now looking back on it in hindsight, is a lack of patience. All these shabab were and that's a fundamental function of being youth. Your overzealousness comes from impatience. You're not patient. You want things to change. And the youth are always the ones that want to change the world now. They don't want to wait. And they don't always use hikmah because they don't have that life experience that hikmah comes from, or elders who they can listen to imbue that to
absolutely
them.
Absolutely.
So that's what I look at it now, is it was a lack of patience. Anytime that anything was brought up, make dua, like, not understanding that the dua, subhanAllah, the dua is that's the weapon, the most important thing. I can understand it from both sides now, but I understand it more fully because the reality is it is the most important thing. Especially when that's the legal thing. That's what you can do legally in Islam. You don't have that ability to legally to go out with just off of your own mind or just off of a tape that you heard to go do this, that, and the third. Because it's not permissible. You don't have that leader to tell you that.
Right.
And also the manner in which this fighting was occurring was at best questionable, because there was so much fitna that was happening as a result of that. Killing and sometimes wanton killing and things of this nature that was happening. But got into that, make a long story short. But even traveled to London and saw I saw, and this is in '99, and I saw firsthand the strife that was happening between these groups, between the groups that were followed, primarily Arabs that were following Abu Qatada, Abu Hamza, who had gained a lot of strength at that time and had taken over the Finsbury Park Mosque, and the followers of Abdullah Faisal.
So they split. The takfiris, takfiruhum ba'duhum
yeah,
ba'd.
and it was a thing where they were eating themselves. You know, they might not have been making. Some of them were making takfir on others. You know, and this was happening too. And this was happening in some of Faisal's tapes, some of his later tapes. You know, where he really went beyond the pale and started, you know, saying, you know, not only are these people kafir, but, you know, I remember infamously he said, you know, if you know, and I'm not going to mock his voice or anything like that, but he said, if you know, if you don't call this person a kafir, you become a kafir.
Yeah.
And I heard that, and I was like,
crazy
wow,
principles, man. Distortion in Sheikh al-Islam's kalam, but anyway,
So there was that, but really what I had begun to go away from it because hearing this extreme stuff and having seen the fitna in London.
Yeah.
Because I had went to London with the intention, possible intention in my heart to maybe go study there and study that.
Wow.
And alhamdulillah, I went there and I saw that that's something I did not want to do.
Yeah.
At all. And right after I came back, Allah put a situation where I could get married.
Okay.
I had a choice on whether I could get married or not, or to actually go overseas and you know, get into some more fitna.
Yeah.
So I made Salat al-Istikhara.
No.
And you know, certain things happened. Even I lost my job at that time when I was still intended to the sister.
Yeah.
And she said, well, you can get another job, can't you? And I said, yeah.
Yeah.
She said, okay. And I was like, subhanallah. And I took that right there as a sign.
Yeah.
You know, that was the path that Allah had chosen for me.
Yeah.
And this was a sister that had been previously married. Her husband had passed away, but not before. She had 2 children by him who were babies when he passed.
Okay.
The oldest one was just a toddler when he passed. And I realized that that my jihad was going to have to be taking care of these children. She had come to help her sister through a pregnancy. Her children could not come, and they weren't able to come. We got married, and she wasn't able. The children were not able to come for a couple of years. Okay. Because of immigration policies at that time. But in the meantime, she and I had a child, and then another one was on the way when the older brothers came, and that was in May of 2001. They arrived.
Okay.
And they came, and their grandmother came with them. And she visited, and they remained, and she left. And I knew that they had to be my purpose. And I remember at the time I was living in SeaTac.
Okay. So the masjid had already closed down because there was all kind of madness. I remember there was surveillance.
The masjid had closed. Yeah,
crazy stuff.
There was surveillance at that time in the early '90s, and there was. In the very late '90s. Yeah. And then an earthquake hit in 2000. And the building that the masjid was in, the masjid had kind of already closed at that point because they couldn't afford to pay the rent. But there was another masjid that the Somali community had built 2 doors down. Okay. But all of that had to go because the building became condemned. Right. After that earthquake, it was an old building.
I thought it was because they did. I'd heard some of the brothers went to the Somali restaurant. There's a Somali restaurant next, let off a few shots or something, or pulled out the straps.
There was something like that too, because there was a store. There was a store right in between the two storefronts where the 2 masjids were. Yeah. Where brothers were chewing cot in the back.
Yeah. Okay. They were chewing cot.
Yeah. And that didn't go over too well with the reverts. Yeah. So there was static and fitna. Yeah. That's a whole other story. But at any rate, the masjid closed down, and then the building was condemned. But then 9/11 happened, and it's crazy. And I understood at that time, after hearing, I mean, it really just completely solidified it for me at that time, because the things that I was hearing coming out of London, especially about 9/11. Wow. And the horrific events of 9/11.
Hamza,
really,
Hamza,
just celebrating it. And I just like, and I was after that I was done.
Yeah.
I already had been done.
Yeah.
Really since the children came.
Yeah.
And even really before that, 2001 is when I really just completely broke up. But by that time,
Yeah.
you know, total bara,
Yeah.
total separation.
Yeah.
And never look back from that time. But even though I completely I made tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for anything that I thought or said about the scholars, may Allah give, especially since they passed, may Allah give them Jannah al-Firdaus and accept the massive good that they did for the ummah. Whatever their mistakes were, there's nothing that I could even mention because I have no knowledge in comparison. So
yeah, that's a ni'mah because that was part of their dawah, was talking about how I remember coming back from Yemen and hearing the first things certain brothers were saying that we know, where your anasheeds for jihad and I said, well, no, I got some tapes of Sheikh Muqbil, this great sheikh there. Bin Baz is this, Al-Albani is this, Bin Uthaymeen's a hypocrite, scholars for dollar. I was like, Akhi, what are you talking about? You don't even know how to, and that was the dawah that was being pumped.
Yeah.
I was really shocked,
And this is all coming from these words are all coming from brothers who couldn't speak a lick of Arabic.
Probably to this day, yeah.
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 And I mean couldn't pronounce Jahiliyyah correctly.
Yeah.
They're saying Jahiliyyah.
Jahiliyyah, okay.
Things like, it's
Allah understand.
Yeah. But this is the impatience. This is the folly of youth.
Yeah.
To think that that we know things and we don't know.
Yeah.
And places that we've never been, and we think that we know what's going on there. Yes, we want to see change.
Yeah.
Yes, the leaders may be oppressing people, but that doesn't give us the right to say that they're
make takfir
on them, because major sins do not take one out of the fold of Islam.
Yeah.
That's just the bottom line. That's the inescapable truth of the matter.
Yeah.
And it took me some years to understand that. But alhamdulillah, I did understand it, and I understand it fully now, and have for a very long time.
Yeah.
But I look at those days. I won't want to say I look at them fondly, but at the same time, I don't regret in the sense, only in the sense that it doesn't make a lot of sense to regret.
Yeah.
That's without having gone through that fitna.
Yeah.
That fire, I wouldn't have come out the other side and understood that it's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the way. That's
your
the way
process.
I see it.
Yeah. That's really all of our steps and stages. That's our process. Our process of growth. Alhamdulillah. All those particles, they make up you, those experiences. So so that's something that's we don't regret anything. It's all from the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's a ni'mah that we are who we are. We've grown and we've hopefully benefited and going hopefully in the right direction, bi-idhnillah ta'ala. So what advice would you give to youth that are also going through their similar phases of now we had to deal with the gang culture a bit and crazy stuff, a lot of violence and different things. But, the youth now, they have a lot more information, but a lot more insanity, I would say. There's just crazy stuff. Like you say, gunplay is much more, problem.
It's almost too much information. The problem is how to sift through it. For example, I'll just say this. The advice I would give to any youth who's struggling to try to find themselves in this deen is if they can, to do what you did, to make hijrah to a place where you can do that, whether it's Saudi Arabia, whether it's wherever, where you can actually sit with scholars or sit with actual talibul ilm and get the knowledge that you need and be in that environment away from fitna.
Yeah.
Because
true.
And I think about the famous story about the man who killed 100 people, where he killed 99 and he asked someone who was supposed to be learned in the town that he was in, is there any hope for redemption for me?
Yeah.
And that person ignorantly said, no, there's no redemption for you. So he killed that person too.
Yeah.
To make it 100.
Make it 100. Yeah.
But then he asked again, because he still, that man still wanted to have some redemption. He still wanted to make Toba, but didn't know how. And he was told by someone who was not ignorant to go to leave this town, to go to somewhere else. You know, and ostensibly for somewhere where you're not known, basically where you can start over again.
Yeah.
And it's also a sign of your intention. You want to leave the place where you're known for all this fitna and all this strife that you've caused to start a new life. So, make that your intention and go and do it. So the man set off on that journey, and when he got, I believe it's like one step past the halfway point between where he was and where he was headed to, the angel of death came and claimed his soul.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is a correct part of the story, but my understanding is that the angels were arguing over whether or not he was going to go to hell or go to Jannah, and they were told by Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, to measure where, how far, and they said, he's one step further, take him, and he's going to Jannah.
No.
So Allah accepted his tawbah.
Yeah.
And that's the point. You have to do something to get yourself out of the situation, whatever you can. And it depends obviously on the level of fitna that you're in, the level of strife that you're in. If it's that bad where you can't practice your deen, or if you can't learn the things about your deen that are going to be beneficial to you. Yeah. Because the thing that's beneficial to someone learning their deen is not whether or not the leaders are Kafirs. It's not learning about whether, every single little point of jihad that may or may not, and probably does not, apply to them. Yeah. What matters is whether or not you can make your wudu correctly. It matters whether or not you can do your prayers correctly. Whether or not you can say your prayers in Arabic, which is the correct manner in which to do it. Learning Arabic in and of itself, which I still have to do, but I know the Arabic that I do just from listening to all the tapes I've listened to. But that's it. But conversational Arabic, I don't know. It's still to this day. Right. These are the things the only things that I regret. And someone who's in the same type of position that I was in when I was a youth, I would say, go and learn those things and sit with people who are upon those things to really teach you the basics of Islam, so that you have a firm foundation. Because when you have that, it will be much more difficult for Shaitan to go up and have a party inside your head, telling you to go and do this and that and the third, which is going to lead you away from the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Jazakallah khairan. Last question. So what would you give as advice for people who are growing through their Islam, that are reverts? Because we've done it. We've seen so many of our brothers and sisters who were neglected. A lot of times a lack of knowledge. We've seen brothers go from Islam to being agents, from Islam to being Buddhist. I'm seeing, possibly sisters that are witches now, or paganism. How do you go from Tawheed to that, is what I'm asking myself. But so what would you say for a person just to stay Muslim? What is one of the most important things that helped you on your journey?
The thing that helped me the most to stay Muslim on my journey was the fact that Allah sent me a wonderful woman to get married to.
Allahu Akbar.
Who was from a Muslim country, and was firm on her deen and praying, and made me want to be a better person. And in fact, it was the epitome to me of the hadith that marriage is half of our deen. To me, that represents being half of your deen, meaning that you connect with another soul, another one of Allah's creation that you can procreate with. But whether you do or not, that can call you out on your nonsense. Yeah.
Completely,
and can make you want to be better in your deen, to be closer to Allah. Someone that when you supplicate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you can thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving you this person, to be with, to be a companion with. And it's very important, and I'll say this definitely, because I saw when I was coming up in my early Islam, brothers getting married left, right, and center, getting married, then getting divorced, getting married, getting divorced, trying to have 2 and 3 wives in a country that doesn't allow it. And I'm not taking anything away from the hukum of Allah. It's allowed, but
But you need the means. You need to be able to afford it.
You
know,
need the
be able
means
to take care of your family. Yeah.
And just for me personally, and Allah knows best. You know, in a country where it's not allowed, I wouldn't recommend it, just because part of being married in Islam is that the community has to know that you're married. And if you're married to multiple women, they have to know that too. You can't do that in this country. You can't do that because then you got to be underground because it's illegal, right? So I'm not saying it becomes illegal in Islam, but because of the fact it's illegal here, it's maybe not the best situation, and especially since you can't.
I think that's the biggest issue.
To live,
trying to take care of multiple families if you can.
It's just really.
But if you have the
really
ability,
hard.
alhamdulillah. If you have the ability, alhamdulillah.
But I say be very wary, and don't let your nafs tell you what you have and have. Your ability. That's just that would be my warning. But mainly, just the bottom line is, try to get married as early as you can within your means, and be very, very. You want to get married to a sister, or a sister to a brother who's on the deen. Who's on the deen. And I'm not talking about manhaj and all this stuff so much. I'm talking about someone who was resolute about praying, who's resolute about reading Quran, who's resolute about learning and excelling in the deen, doing better, this Ramadan than he or she did the last Ramadan. The other stuff, the manhaj and all that stuff, that's part of it too. But I think that's slightly more secondary to a degree. But when it comes to aqidah and things like this, you have to have that's
aqidah is very absolutely.
This is the basis of Islamic faith. You have to have these things. And growing up in the West and being a Muslim in the West can be very difficult because you're in a minority situation. It's imperative, if you can, to get with a community that's a solid community. A community where you can be a part of and that's going to embrace you. Islam is not a religion where we go off by ourselves and we're just by ourselves in the middle of nowhere being Muslim. If that's your situation, that's your situation. But if at all possible,
community is important.
You want to be part of the community. This deen is you're part of the ummah.
Companionship is very important.
The ummah, the larger ummah is the world community of Muslims. The smaller ummah is the community of Muslims in your locality. And you want to be around others because for the same reason, you want to be around people who are better than you, or at least Allah knows best. People who make you want to pray more, who make you want to, and people who you can learn underneath. And if you can't make hijrah to a place where you can get that anywhere.
Jazakallah khairan. Allah you barak fik for your time, and your wisdom and experience, man. This has been a pleasure, and I look forward to more hikes and more outings. So, Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.